all my friends, they says, "Hey, what are you listening to over there?" And I say, "Hey, I'm over here now, listening to..."
Let's Find Out with co-host Diego.
You hear? I hear. Oh!
Everything in this universe has a beginning. The Big Bang. The formation of nebular matter into stars and planets. The first collections of amino acids in the Earth's oceans. The first creatures to leave them. The first mammals. The first primates that walked upright. The first religion. The first printing press.
Pump up your space boots and phone home. It's time for Let's Find Out with co-host Diego.
Live. To tape from the mothership. It's Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Bigfoot, UFOs, Stargates, let's find out. Paranormal, intelligent design, entertainment, let's find out. You're listening to Let's Find Out with co-host Diego.
Broadcasting tonight from the basement of the Alamo. Welcome to another episode of Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, we will be learning more about our favorite cryptids, as well as some we may not have heard of before. With a growing YouTube channel, Talk Cryptids is a UK-based paranormal and cryptid researcher bringing us the best information out there today. Please welcome to Let's Find Out, Talk Cryptids. Welcome to Let's Find Out. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight, yeah.
Of course, it's a late night for you, but as all good nights, it's perfect to talk about paranormal and cryptid, one of our favorite subjects. But before I begin with you, and I normally ask this question to a lot of the guests because I like to know how it all started. Did your interest with cryptozoology, aliens, and the paranormal, is this something from personal experience, or is it from people's stories? Is it from documentaries you've watched, books you've read?
It's a bit of all, really. I mean, I grew up watching primarily American shows such as Finding Bigfoot and Monster Quest, and that really kind of intrigued me a bit with all these supposed creatures which have been spotted all around the world. And before that, I never really believed anything was really here in England until back in, I think it was 2019. It was a cold December. We were on a holiday break. It was me and my friends. And we went out to this woods, no name or anything. But one of my friends knew it, just outside the village we were living in at the time. And one of my friends said, yeah, we should go build a bushcraft shelter there, get away from all the other older people. And so we followed him, met up next day. We went to the woods, and we had an encounter with something unexplainable. It's had a very eerie resemblance to the velociraptors from the Jurassic Park movies, with long snouts, long tail, 2 claws, and it was just a really strange experience, yeah. And so after that, I kind of had this idea in my mind that I grew up watching it, I found my own encounter, I might as well start up my own sort of podcast investigation channel and spread all the information I know on the subject to help other people with anything that they've ever experienced and stuff like that. But yeah, I've been into the subject for quite a while now, yeah.
Hey, because you were talking about a personal experience and encounter. Now, I don't know the landscape in the UK as well, so whereabouts did this happen?
Well, this happened in a place where I still live, the county of North West Lancashire. It happened in just outside the small village of Bolton Sands. It's not even a big wood, it's a miniature wooded area, and it's about a 20-minute walk from the village itself. So we went up there, and it's a bit of both. There's hills, there's trees, and as we walked up the stream on our left, and it was in front of us, next to this tree line, that we saw this creature running to the left of us. But yeah, it's quite a strange landscape. We have all sorts of things there: rocks, hills, mountainous areas, and yeah.
So with that, because you noticed a figure, now was there a particular smell? Was there a sound? Did it make any noise as far as shuffling the woods or leaves or anything like that?
From what I remember, there was no sound, there was no sense, no smell. It was just the visual thing that we could see, this strange dinosaur-like creature running almost away from us, I guess you could say.
Wow, and that's pretty interesting because is this something that happens a lot in the UK? Now, pardon my ignorance, I'm pretty well read in a lot of these things, but I often don't hear a lot of stories coming from that side of the world.
Yeah,
So, does the US and the UK have similar cryptids in common?
it does. You may not know it, but it's eerily similar. What creatures described. I mean, one of the most famous over there is the Mothman in West Virginia, which is probably one of the most famous cryptids. And yeah, we have a similar creature over here in England, down south in Cornwall, which is with a similar name, the Owlman, which has been said the same kind of things. The first time it was spotted, it was close by a church by Mornan, and ever since then it's been seen around this specific area. And then I know you get a lot of, however you want to call them, dogmen or werewolf reports over there in the US.
Yes.
And we have similar type creatures with all sorts of theories springing from either being interdimensional, governmental made, or being a natural creature altogether.
Now it's funny you mentioned Mothman because you're talking about West Virginia, which is where the show here is based out of, and that Mothman Museum is about a 4-hour drive from me. West Virginia is a pretty big state, but yeah, it's they have that Mothman Festival every year, and it's actually one of the most popular ones. Aside from Bigfoot sightings, it's probably one of the top 2 in West Virginia. We're talking about different cryptids, different, I'll say monsters. Let's talk about the, you're a very brave person because you did a live stream not long ago where you actually went into the woods, and I say in search of evidence or to have an encounter with a UK Wildman. So with the UK Wildman, is that something similar to Sasquatch, or is this a dogman or something completely different?
Yeah, so it's very similar to the American Sasquatch or Bigfoot, however you want to call it. It's been described in multiple ways, just like the Sasquatch has been. Some people say it's like a caveman. Others say it's like a green man, possibly made out of these kind of, I guess you could say, twigs, leaves, etc. So almost like a elemental spirits type creature. And others just say it is very eerily similar to the Bigfoot over there, tall, 6-7 foot, humanoid creature with dark brown fur. And there's been all sorts of theories about it, like I was saying about the Dogman, with one of the main, because the woods over here aren't as big as obviously you've got in the US. We've only got a couple of national parks. The woods aren't as big, and so people claim that it can either be interdimensional, slipping through different places. Sort of if you listen to one radio station and then another briefly interrupts it. And people also say that it could possibly be of extraterrestrial origin, being some type of alien type creature, possibly. I do find that hard to believe personally. But yeah, there's also the idea that it could be an extinct creature, possibly Neanderthal or something of that realm, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned with interdimensional. Now, I don't particularly subscribe to that theory, although not impossible, because this world, this globe, this planet is so old that we don't know what's really happening that our science or researchers cannot explain. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. My theory is that, especially here in the United States, we have a lot of national forests. There's more forest and uninhabited land than there are cities or towns. The United States is pretty big. Smaller than most countries, still big nonetheless, where I think that possibly a lot of these creatures might be using some sort of cloaking technology, and I don't mean in an extraterrestrial way, it might be natural, or there's some sort of way they travel through a underground cave system of sorts, because that for me would be the only way to explain how they pop up and disappear, because not many people know how to find these portals.
I just want to touch on what you said about the
Sure.
Underground cave systems. I know there's been a few reports over by the whole kind of African area of natives, local, seeing these weird, very eerie, alien-like reptilian beings going into and out of caves. And it makes me think if, like we were saying, a majority of these creatures do use caves as a way to get around. I mean, there's the very famous, especially over here, the Loch Ness Monster, which is described as a plesiosaur-type creature. And it was also recently found that under Loch Ness there is a cave or numerous cave systems under Loch Ness. And so over there in the US, you've got Champ, creatures like Ogopogo, and it makes me think if they're possibly even the same species or even the same creature that is just using these underground tunnels as a way to slip through different countries and areas. Yeah,
because although I'm not a proponent, look at me using college words like I know what they mean. I'm not a big endorser of the inner Earth theory, where there's a world within a world. But that's maybe not too far from the truth, because these are large cave systems that may be just as big as, our lands over here. So, it quite could be possible, especially since I don't know if you've dug into this when in Antarctica where, gosh dang, I forget the name of that Admiral, was it Admiral Byrd, where he found supposedly a giant crater, but it was actually a hole somewhere in Antarctica.
Yeah. I've heard of numerous weird, strange happenings in Antarctica. I think I've heard briefly about what you were talking about this crater-like thing, but I've heard all sorts of strange things from over there, such as pyramids, possibly even being used by extraterrestrials. As I even know that obviously you're not even allowed to go to Antarctica. There's been people that have been trying to go there by boat, and they've just been pursued back home. And so it makes me think if something secret is actually happening there, and if something about that area is special somehow.
Yeah, and I think it's actually illegal, I know, to travel there, not just by the United States government, but other governments too.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it is some big corrupt, for something big, maybe, like I was saying, aliens or anything like that, yeah.
No, and I think that, that's definitely a possibility. But now we're going to jump to something, because we were talking about Loch Ness and we're talking about underwater or underground cave dwelling cryptids and way they travel back and forth. The Charles Mills Lake Monster. Now, some people have an opinion that it could be a Bigfoot type, an alien, or reptilian. What have been some of the descriptions of these creatures by the eyewitnesses? And in your opinion, what do you think it is?
Well, when looking back when I was doing my own research for my video on the being, I was looking, and it's got a weird kind of resemblance to the Fresno Nightcrawlers, with it having 2 feet but yet no arms. And so very similar to the Fresno Nightcrawlers, but I think really difference is that the Charles Mill Lake Monster has facial features, whereas the Fresno Nightcrawler does not. And perhaps it may be a kind of water-dwelling variant of the Fresno Nightcrawler. I know it's described as, like you were saying, reptilian-like, green, scaly, brown, dark skin. And yeah, I know also by that area you've got famous orange eyes around that same sort of area, which is more of a Bigfoot type creature, I guess you could say, with, as the name suggests, big glowing eyes, which are primarily orange. And so some people say it could possibly be the same creature, but I'm not too sure because of the no arm feature of Charles Mill Lake Monster.
Now, with that and the Honey Island Swamp Monster, are we looking at similar descriptions of what can be possibly the same species, or just 2 different species altogether?
Possibly. I mean, when you look at the Honey Island Swamp Monster, it's also described as somewhat reptilian, with some of the tracks that have been found. 3-toed, very much like lizards and very kind of similar description, I guess you could say, to the Charles Mill Lake Monster being a somewhat reptilian, swamp or water-based creature. And then if you look back at Orange Eyes, which is also described as a Bigfoot, and then the Honey Island Swamp Monster, which is also described as a reptilian Bigfoot-like creature, which is almost a mix of both Orange Eyes and the Charles Mill Lake Monster. So it could all be intertwined into the same specific species or being itself.
You know, and it's funny, we're talking about reptilians, and I know we can go through a rabbit hole here, but just like giants, it seems like the subject of reptilians is becoming more and more popular by the year. It's in my belief that I think possibly the reptilian race was a pre-Adamic race to before, I'll say, humans, how we look now, before prehistory. And I think there's something to that, because there's a lot of things that are unexplainable. But what I can gather is there's a lot of religions around the globe that have a reptilian origin story, or some sort of how do I say, I'm losing my words here, but there seems to be a pre-Adamic race of reptiles that behaved and had their own language and own advanced scientific knowledge.
Yeah. No, I mean, with the reptilians, they've been described as in numerous ways, possibly aliens themselves, possibly from underneath, and other theories, like what David Icke talked about, that they're possibly somewhat of a shapeshifter type creature, and how they transform into a human-like appearance, which is, there's all sorts of major celebrities, famous people, which are claimed to be possibly reptilians. So they could very well be of older origin, perhaps trying to fit in with the modern day human lifestyle, possibly.
And I think that could be true. Now, back when I was about your age, maybe a little bit younger, there was a show that was very popular. It came out at NBC called V. And I know there was a remake sometime in the early 2000s, but it was basically a extraterrestrial race that touched down on Earth. They looked like humans, but they had their skin was fake. So when you ripped off the skin, there were reptiles underneath. I'm not saying it's exactly, it was a great, let's just say, because sometimes science fiction is a very good predictor of truth and of future events. And I think they were right on the money on that one. Have you ever seen that?
I've never heard of the show itself, but I have seen similar movies, films, series that do have an eerie resemblance to what is currently happening in our world. Yeah, I mean, there's one film, I'm trying to think of the name, it was called V for Vendetta, which was set around a couple of years back, as I think it was made in early 2000s, and that kind of basis, there was a disease outbreak very similar to COVID-19, which also happened. And the strange thing is that the disease in V for Vendetta is set in the same time frame as when COVID happened. And so, yeah, I can easily imagine film series predicting what is going to or is currently happening.
Yeah, as I said earlier, science fiction is usually only years away from actually something like that even happening. So let me ask this, because I know the goings on on this side of the world in the United States, where now things are starting to be divulged, information is coming out. How is the mood in the UK when it comes to topics such as cryptids, ufology, and paranormal? Has there been an increase in sightings and interest? How has the government been reporting it in the news in your area?
The UK's been almost completely silent on it. I know over in the US, over and over again, there's been reports of UFOs which have made major news headlines. But over here in the UK, it's been completely silent. No news has been really coming out about these things. I know about a couple independent researchers, such as Paul Sinclair, Deborah Hartswell, that do take reports and encounters in, run their own shows, go on their own investigations. But as far as major news outlets go, nothing almost nothing at all has really come in.
It's interesting. Now, I'm just asking, I'm not going to hold you to this. Now, let's just call it a walking theory, that this is intentionally being kept away from the folks in the UK, but would you get in trouble, or is it illegal for you to get on the internet and research your own stuff from, let's say, the US or Canada or South America, where there's been a rising reports of UFOs? Now, would someone like you who does research, would you get in trouble by this? Get a visit by somebody with a nice suit knocking on your front door? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I've not experienced anything like that so far, but I'll definitely let you know if Men in Black do start knocking on my front door. Yeah, nothing so far, nothing that I know of, but you never know what's being covered up and what's not.
Now, I'm jumping all over the road because I could talk about this all night. With your YouTube channel, I mean, you're doing very well. I mean, how long has it been around, and when was the time where, you touched a little bit about it earlier, when did you decide to really this is what I'm going to do?
Oh, right. Well, I think I've had it for maybe just over a year now, maybe just about 2 years. And I started it not really as a full-time thing, but maybe just as a kind of side hobby that I do sometimes. But I think it might have been maybe 11 months ago. I kind of stopped doing it because when my mates found out, and here in the UK, there's not really many people that take this subject seriously, and so it was more kind of being talked about as jokes and stuff like that. So I'm going to stop uploading, hoping that my friend would forget about it. And then I think maybe after 5 months, I uploaded my first fully edited video, which I spent full on time and effort in. That did quite well. I think it got a couple hundred views. And I think after that, it really motivated me to carry on and do this kind of weekly thing where I'd go outside or stay at home and talk about these strange occurrences which have been happening not only here in the UK, but also over there in the US and other foreign countries.
And from a lot of the comments that I've read, because I've been binge watching your channel here, in preparation for this show, because I think now we've been planning this for almost a month now, and I really started watching the videos. I'm very impressed by the work that you do. The comments are very positive. So when you getting ready to record a video, and there's just so much out there to cover, and you, like I said, you're doing a great job. What's the best source material that you use? Other, because I know that you've had your personal experiences, but where do you go to? How do you choose your next subject, and where do you dive into to find all the information about it?
Well, when choosing subjects, I sometimes look on things like Reddit, Facebook, and see what's basically been making the most recent posts and headlines, what cryptids are getting talked about most, and which I find most interesting. And when actually, before I start filming and I make a somewhat script, I don't have a printer at home, and obviously I'm still at school, and so I can use the computers there, and I use multiple sources, so I get all sorts of different information about the same kind of thing, just so it kind of evens it out. So if one thing is fake and something else is true, I'm still adding truth into that video, even if some of it is partially false. And then, I'll get that printed on some paper, and then I'll kind of just have it in front of me and I'll read off it. Yeah.
Once you make your videos, it goes out there. I say you get a lot of views. Where are you going next? What's the next video you're going to make?
Well, after that, I'll think to myself, what am I going to do? Because obviously I do numerous different stuff. I do podcasts, I do talks, and I go on investigations. So I guess in a way it's kind of like a lucky dip. You never really know what's going to be coming out next. But I will try and think ahead whenever I can. I mean, recently, some things I have planned months in advance. I mean, the other day, for my birthday specifically, I went down to a place called the North Yorkshire Moors, which is known for numerous different creatures, cryptids, paranormal, UFO type experiences such as abductions and numerous sightings and encounters. And so I'll go to a location for a couple of days, and I'll kind of go eat out each day to these different places in that location, see what I find sometimes. Yeah, and then last year I went to England's apparent most haunted forest, Cannock Chase, which has been said to host things such as the Pigman, Black-Eyed Children, Dogmen, and the Wildman. And yeah, sometimes it's planned a week in advance, sometimes it's planned months in advance. So it's really a lucky dip. You never know what's going to be coming out next.
I think that's just part of the fun, because sometimes it's the subjects just jump out at you. You want to go out there and take a look and do your research. So for the listeners of Let's Find Out, where can they find out more about Talk Cryptids and what it is that you're doing?
Well, I don't really have many online things. Obviously, I've got the YouTube channel, and I've also got an Instagram. And then on my YouTube, I've got a link on my information bio, which has my Instagram name and also my email. So if there is any stories that you'd like me to share, you can hit me up there. And yeah, I think that's about it. I do also have a Facebook, which I use quite a bit, and that's about it. Yeah.
And then the Facebook is also Talk Cryptids. Everything's
Talk Cryptids. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to find that way. So, my friend, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story. But I'm curious to, since your first encounter and from the research and going out into the field, has there been anything that you've encountered since? Have you seen something?
Since my original encounter, I've not really seen much. I mean, I've seen things in the sky late at night, proper strange moving stars that just vanish all of a sudden and appear somewhere else. But physically, down here, I've not really experienced anything except from uneasy feelings while out in places. But no, nothing too much so far.
Man, if you make those videos, please, I'd invite you, please come back later this year and tell us all about what you've been doing, what you've seen. I'd like to definitely see what you're doing, especially on your YouTube channel, which to the listeners of the show, I urge you, please check it out. There's a lot of great information in there, and there's a variety of things, because you're not a one-trick pony. You're going through all these things, a lot of great information. So as a fan of the subjects, like myself and the listeners, I appreciate you having this channel, and I'm gonna binge watch some more tonight. So I really thank you for making those great videos.
Thanks for watching, and thanks for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed being on. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for being on, my friend. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with me, co-host Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages, as well as our new YouTube channel. My friend Wendy Stevens at the end of the show will let you know where you can learn more about the show. Thank you for taking this journey with me, my friends. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to Let's Find Out with co-host Diego. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, and on Anchor. For more information about Let's Find Out with co-host Diego, please visit us on Facebook.com/co-host Diego, on Twitter at co-host_Diego, and on Instagram as co-host Diego. Copyright co-host Diego. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.